The only thing I wanted to do was tell stories, especially in that moment when we're so isolated and we're so alone. You want community. I think at the end of the day, you know, the storytellers will always persevere.
Oh, I love that about you. Willing to learn. I think that's such a huge piece of somebody being successful.
So I primarily work for two different companies, Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's company, and Point Grey, which is Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's company. What was really cool about working there at Q was that I was already doing literally what we were learning in school. I was doing it every morning.
And having just the courage to pack up and go to Hollywood on a Women of Prayer. LA, Los Angeles, Hollywood. Is this a new era?
Hi, I'm Leslie Lowe. Welcome to Leslie's Lowdown on Life.
You guys, I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, a longtime friend. I consider my other child, actually, Mandi Price. Amanda graduated from Shadle Park High School, Gonzaga University. You worked here at KHQ. You left us back in 2012.
Yeah.
Where'd the time go?
Nowhere.
That's crazy. So you were an editor, a producer here at KHQ. But you packed up your car, you left Spokane, and you went to go do some amazing things. So currently a producer in Hollywood.
Yeah. I work on some pretty great TV shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that because first of all, I want to talk about that whole transition because you went to school with, broadcasting in mind, which is why you started here, which is awesome. That's how far back we go. But let's talk about that jump from working in television and having just the courage to pack up and go to Hollywood on a Women of Prayer.
It was nuts. It was crazy. I think that there's this element of what happens if, like we have this thing of what would happen if I do this or what if, and I sort of had this conversation with myself and others of like why if I can stay here and I love it here, and what happens if like I just dream a little bigger, make something a little bit, like risk it just a little bit, what would happen? And it's been a crazy wild ride.
So you talk a lot about encouraging and encouraging other women to dream big, but dream bigger.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, so many times growing up, you're limited to what you know, and you're limited to how big can I get, or how small, or, like doctor, nurse, like we all know the things that we think are big, that are big accomplishments. And I think for me, it was like I knew that I wanted to be an editor or a producer, and then, but like news maybe wasn't for me all the time. So then what happens? Like I still want to do the job I love. I'm a storyteller. I want to tell stories. So how do I do that on maybe a bigger scale? And let's see what happens.
Okay, I want to talk about your story though, because you are a Spokane native.
Yeah.
You were adopted into a white family.
Yep.
And so that builds a lot of who you are.
It is. It's very much who I am. Yeah. I think not only being adopted into a white family, but adopted in a family, in a community that is primarily white, has influenced me in ways that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But now looking back, certain decisions that I made or certain communities that I identify with was very much shaped by the community that I grew up in. And it's been really fun coming back to Spokane so often to really reunite with I've just had the opportunity to meet like a lot of African-American, like Black influencers here in the community, and how big the community has gotten since I've left and then came back. And it's sort of a whole new world that I've discovered, and I'm so grateful for. And like, there's just so many resources and community involvement that I just didn't ever see when I was growing up that is available now.
How does it feel for you, though, to be a part of that big influence? Because you've really stepped in and you're part of that movement here.
Thank you. I don't know about that.
You really are.
But it's great. I mean, I've gotten just to meet so many wonderful community leaders, and they've taught me so much, and they make me a better leader. And just everyone leads so much with kindness that it's hard not to gravitate towards that. And to use people who are more experienced than I am and take just little pieces from them.
We do learn so much from everybody that we come in contact with, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We definitely do. I love that. I love that about meeting people.
Yeah, I want to take us back to early KHQ days.
Okay.
Yes, because you were just little Mandi then.
Yes.
Yeah, little Mandi working in television. You came out of Gonzaga University.
Not even. I was still in college.
You were still in college.
I was a junior
That's right.
when I started working overnights here.
Oh, boy. What a tough one, though, to get started on doing the overnights.
Overnight. Yeah. I was working like 10 p.m. to, either 10 p.m. or if I was lucky enough and no breaking news happened, then I would get to sleep till 3 in the morning and then come here and then work until the morning show ended, then go to class and then go take a nap. Then the whole thing would start again.
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 years, like my junior and senior year, which is nuts.
That really is nuts, but tenacity, right? And work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, it was great because I have a degree in broadcasting and poli-sci, and what was really cool about working here at Q was that I was already doing literally what we were learning in school. I was doing it every morning or every night, depending on how you want to look at it. But so that was crazy because I was learning in tandem with my education, which was really fun and really interesting to do. And Gonzaga just does such a great job of combining both of those kind of elements. And I was lucky enough to have professors and, just everyone really helped me navigate a world that I was unfamiliar with.
Yeah, hands-on experience goes a long way.
Literally.
What are some of your favorite moments?
From
KHQ.
KHQ?
Yeah.
Well, Bloomsday. The Lilac Parade. Well, you and I used to do those science experiments every morning. Like those were always fun. I like breaking news. I will never not get like an adrenaline rush. Like when I see breaking news and like how you're feeding the camera, like the camera out in the field is feeding the edit room and you're just live cutting. Like I still think about a lot of those days.
So you took a lot of that with you. Obviously, packed up the car.
Yeah.
And you headed south into LA.
Yeah, I headed to the Sunshine State.
That's so lucky you.
I know. Thank you.
But you took everything that you learned here and the experiences in life, and you took it with you there. Talk about those first few months in LA.
Oh, they were scary. My first night there, my car got broken into. So that was exciting.
Yeah. Welcome to LA.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to LA. And so then I didn't leave my house for like a week because I was terrified to exit. But then I started working on a TV show called Rizzoli and Isles. And what I learned very quickly is what we were doing in news translates really one-to-one almost in how we create television shows. The only thing is that we do it in a 24-hour segment and they do it in, a 22-day, 30-day, 40-day. But really the process is nearly the same. We just have more people that do it, and there's just more specialties within the field that we work in. But it's really, I credit a lot of my efficiencies and just the work ethic, but also the time management to working in news, because you don't have time to do all of the other things. You just have to get to it because it's a breaking news story or something's happening. And so I use those same tools definitely as a producer now, for sure. Especially as an editor, and just as when I do edit, but just as a producer specifically.
What was your first job? I mean, it was Rizzoli and Isles, but what was your first position?
PA. I was a post-production assistant. Everything about Hollywood that is great is that everyone starts at the bottom. So you start as a PA, and then you work your way up. And my specialty is in post-production because of editing. So I was a post PA and then post coordinator, and then so I was 2 seasons of Rizzoli and Isles, and then like the second to last one, and then the final season, and then got the bump to post supervisor, which is more of a management role, like a year and a half after moving there, which was nuts. That jump doesn't happen for years and years and years, and it was crazy.
Strong work ethic, though. You were willing
Something.
to do whatever it takes. I think that's why I say tenacity and courage, and you just had what it took, and you were willing to do all the steps to get there.
Yeah, I think there's this element of I just wanted to learn. I think that I love learning, and I just wanted to soak up as much information. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go, I went to journalism school. So I was in this environment that I was unfamiliar with, and I didn't know the rules. And that sort of lent itself to my ability to sort of learn everything and the desire to learn everything. And so I have so many great coworkers who've been willing to teach me along the way.
So I love that about you, willing to learn. I think that's such a huge piece of somebody being successful, being willing to step back and to learn from everybody that you can, to get to know the people that you're with and you're working with, and then be able to step out. But you're willing to learn first. And I think that speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, life is a big learning. I feel like I'm always learning, but I genuinely love to learn. I love to learn new things. And to me, it's only been a benefit. It's only been a benefit.
I'm going to rattle off a few things. So Rizzoli and Isles, Future Man, Little Fires Everywhere, Boomerang. Gosh, Daisy Jones and The Six. There are so many that I can go. You've been on so many successful shows so far, and you've really connected yourself with some really great groups, one of them being Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, so I primarily work for 2 different companies, production companies. I work for Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's company, and Point Grey, which is Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's company. And I've been with each of them pretty much most of my career at this point. And I just feel so lucky to be able to have I get my my female energy. I get all of my great female lead content, female driven content, and also get to play with the boys, which is, I have 3 brothers, so Seth and Evan are definitely more me naturally, is that sort of vibe, I guess. And so it's been great because I get to have both sides, and, I get the drama and I also get the comedy, but it's also at a level that is such just exceptional work all around, from script to screen to editorial to just everyone is amazing. I feel so privileged.
Well, they're lucky to have you. Really. I mean, you get connected with a group. When we were talking about this earlier, you get connected with a group and you want to stay connected with a group because then you can kind of go from project to project and you really become like family.
Yeah. I mean, it's so nice to be. I mean, I was with Hello Sunshine, with Little Fires Everywhere. Hello Sunshine was a group of 6 people now, and now they have 150 or something. So it's very funny to have grown with the company, and have seen it just everyone that I worked with originally, how they've all grown, and then they've chosen me to be brought up with them, and it's been so great. And my team is just exceptional. I work with the best people, and I feel again just so lucky and honored, and it's really hard to work in an industry that is constantly battling all the time. Everyone's sort of always looking over their shoulder a bit, and it's nice to work for a company or companies who they just want to make good shows, and they will throw anything and everything at it to make wonderful, amazing content.
What's been your favorite? Or can you even pick a?
No,
can you pick a favorite, because you have worked on so many great shows?
Every show is my favorite, because they're like little children that you raise. So a big part of my job specifically is, I'm usually the 3rd or 4th person hired on a TV show. So I see something from beginning to end. My department post is, we're in charge of delivering the series and getting it to air. But specifically my job is I really am the last one to see a show before it airs. And so it's each one you sort of fall in love with in its own way. I mean, each show I've done, I have little lessons. Like Future Man is what I like. The only instruction Seth and Evan and Ben, Kyle and Ariel and that team ever gave me was, Mandy, we just want like this to be cool. We want that, like, we just want to make you look cool. And like that is to give a creative that freedom. I mean, I could just, they taught me how to do my job and how to love my job. So that one is special in its own way. And then, Little Fires Everywhere was the first one that was like so like just acclaimed in a way. And the pressure on that show was something I had never experienced, with having Kerry Washington and Reese not only as producers, but also as actors and the leads. And that was its own thing, because we also had the press in editorial and like the managing their schedules, and all of that so I was doing my job plus many others just to keep it afloat. But then I think Daisy is probably the one I'm most proud of. That one took about 5 years, because we were supposed to start before the pandemic, and like 5 or 10 days before, and then the world shut down. So that got put on hold. But with that it was like 5 years almost. So in between Daisy, which was I did Archive 81, which was such a fun show. And it was my first scary show. And I don't watch scary movies. So that one was its own baby and element, because I am a wimp. and then I had to do a scary show, and I was like, I don't know how to do this, but okay.
But you did that during the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
so everything was at home.
Yeah, so everything was at home during that time. And then even the start of Daisy, a lot of it was at home, just because we were still working from home in LA. Most of us were. And so then it was, and now I've done, I did Surface, and then The Studio, which is airing right now. And now I'm on 2 others. So we're, it's been busy.
Yeah, going right along, which is pretty fantastic. I want to go back to the pandemic, because what a unique experience. And I say unique in the nicest way I possibly can, because that, even I've lost track of time when we talk about things. And so you talk about Daisy being put on hold during the pandemic. What was that like in Hollywood?
It was scary. It was really scary, because I was delivering the final episode of Little Fires, and that show, like that episode almost didn't air. Like, I'm not joking, by like a matter of minutes, because of the upload speeds, and the world was shutting down, and we couldn't go into vendors, and we couldn't do, like, just like everyone else, we didn't know what was happening. So I'm in my car, and everyone's stuck at home, and I'm trying to like make sure I don't get arrested, because it's like, because we're all doing that. And then with the so then, we're off of work. Like, everyone is put on like a 2-week hiatus, but then it just kept going and going. And then, the protests, like the George Floyd stuff happened, which was like right where I lived. And so that was also its own, racial divide there, which was really scary. And then I got a call from Netflix, actually, when I came up here, because I ended up driving up, and then driving almost back down. And it was creating a TV show when you're used to creating with people in person was really difficult. And we were the first show back from the pandemic. So it was like we were literally paving a way of how to even do this, how to even work during a pandemic. So that was also, like, I didn't meet my boss until like 18 months later. Like, the person that is literally what I work day to day with, I didn't meet for 18 months after.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts.
That's like flying blind.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And starting a new show.
Mm-hmm. With a new team and new everything.
So how did you persevere through that? Like, how did you get from point A to point Z, really?
I think we're storytellers and we're artists. So you just find a way and you work it out.
Yeah.
You sort of just, the only thing I wanted to do was tell stories, especially in that moment when we're so isolated and we're so alone. You want community, and what better way to do it is like to tell stories and to continue that. I think at the end of the day, the storytellers will always persevere, because we just want to tell stories.
Right. And you had to battle isolation.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, we all felt isolated, but at least you had that connection.
Yeah.
Even if it's a bunch of monitors in front of you.
9.
9 monitors in front of you. But you still have that connection to people, and you are building stories that that are going to help people.
Yeah.
Because we were all leaning into every show we could watch. Because that's
Exactly.
what we did.
Because what else were we going to do?
What else were we going to
bake
do?
bread,
Well,
watch
yeah,
TV.
drink too much wine, eat too
exactly.
many Cheetos.
Oh my gosh, so much of that.
So much. So you went from the pandemic and all of that, and then you went into the strikes. And am I getting this like chronologically correct? But the strikes in itself, that was terrifying.
That to me was scarier than the pandemic, really, because you just don't know when it's like the pandemic. Everyone, it was like universal shutdown. But then, the government came in to help with like finances and, so you had more support. But then with the strike it's not, I wasn't on strike. It was people that I work with are on strike. So, and I can see, I have so much empathy for the writers and for the directors and the actors. But at the same time, you've got this divide of, I still need to work. Like this fight isn't for me. I get sort of in the long run it is, but not really. But then it just kept going on and going on and going on. And I was lucky enough to be working on Bass Reeves at the time. So we had already finished filming. And so when the actors went on strike, or when the writers went on strike and the actors, like we were well into post. So I could continue working. But one of my shows in London, Surface, got shut down. So then so that was put on hold. And then when the strike ended, then we brought back. But it was really hard to go back because it was like, I felt like it was 6 months. It maybe was not. It was 4, I think. But it felt like it was like a year because you then had to restart everything that had. And at that point, when we came back from the strike, is people were on different shows. Like people had left, and so you're now getting to know a new crew and try to pick up where you left off.
So we talk about post-production, which is kind of your wheelhouse, and you love putting the pieces together, which is what my son does as well. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But talk about the different elements of putting a show together, because your post-production, you love that creative, putting it together, making it look good, and then sending the baby off. Yeah.
So there's sort of 3, there's development, there's writing, there's physical production, then there's post-production. So the post-producer, which is a unique role in it, is there's the head showrunner, who is the head writer, and they're writing the scripts. Like I don't write, don't ask me to write. No, not my wheelhouse. But then there's the line producer, the UPM, who's in charge of physical production, and then there's the post-producer who's in charge of post-production. But the way that TV works nowadays is that I'm involved. I'm in prep 10 weeks before we're filming, easily, if not more, just because the post element is such a huge key part now, and it's so integral with just visual effects and sound design and just all of that my role just needs to be done. We need to have, in order for them to shoot and film accurately, you just have to have the expertise of a post producer, and also to dictate this, the schedule, sort of how that all works for the studio and network. Because at the end of the day, again, it's when can this air? How quickly can we get this done, and still make it as beautiful as we want it to be? So yeah, that's sort of the easy piece of it, I guess, the very rudimentary version of what is involved.
Of what all goes together, but we know that's not easy.
No, it's none 1,500 and more people. I think something I always try to remind people is, there's actor, director, producer. We know those roles, but then there's, sometimes up to 2,000 other people working on the show to get it to air. And that's a lot of roles, that's a lot of jobs, that's a lot of positions that so many people don't understand or don't know about. And I feel it like a big disservice to the industry, that the education of what can be done and who does what. It's not, there's costume designers, there's props, there's editorials, there's sound design, there's composers, there's, just so many various departments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like everyone who wants to tell stories should know that.
Yes. And I think that when the strikes happened, and I'll just touch on that briefly, I think we saw one avenue of the strikes, but really there is just so much more that was affected by.
What happened with the strikes that I think people finally understood because it lasted so long was that, especially with the actors and with the writers, is that when a TV show shuts down, it's not just the crew on the show. It affects the hair salon down the street. Mm-hmm. It affects the light, the lighting, the light bulbs. It affects every avenue, like the hairdresser. Like it doesn't just encompass the little world of like my job or like the TV show itself. But when you have a whole industry that is entirely shut down, that spans globally, that's a lot of people without work and without a way forward, because we can't really. I mean, it's not that, yes, I could go get another job somewhere else, but most people can't. Mm-hmm. Because again, like if you're an on-set hair, hair and makeup artist, but no one's getting their hair and makeup done outside anyway either. Like, so you're going to go it's the doctors who are working essentially like in the city. That's
the ripple effect.
Yeah, like
there's
just
such
how
a big
much
ripple
it
effect.
spreads. People, you just don't think about it.
Yeah,
how much one industry, especially in a town like LA, but it affects LA, Vancouver, Atlanta, London. Like it's a global industry. So anyone who was a member of like anyone like SAG-AFTRA, the WGA, all were not working.
Yeah, and that was tough.
Yeah, it was really scary.
I saw something the other day and it kind of struck me, and it said, LA, Los Angeles, Hollywood, is this a new era? And because there's so many changes that seem to be happening. And I kind of want your take on that, and really what you've seen as the biggest changes since you went down.
I feel really lucky in the sense of like I've had a thrust into like a very prominent piece of like the Hollywood story in the last 10 years that I've been there.
Right. Because
it was right before streamers started, like right before. My second show, like Future Man, was like the first streamer on Hulu. Like it was the first show. So I was at literally the start of streaming. And so then you just see the rise, and you see just there's so many shows just, I mean, I was getting phone calls all just, Mandy, when are you done? Mandy, when, like just so many, there were too many shows and not enough people. Mm-hmm. To now have the strikes, and it's back to smaller numbers before I moved to LA. So it's not only back 5 years ago, it's back almost 20 years.
Wow.
So the content, so we're so used to consuming all of this content, and sorry to tell y'all, like it's going to be a rough 4 years for you, because there just isn't anything. There isn't anything coming up. The studios and the networks are picking 2-3 shows a year, and each one of those shows will take 18 months, unless it is like the SVUs and sort of those shows which are so formulaic, like you can do them with your eyes closed. But you're not getting a Game of Thrones anytime soon. They're just not spending that money anymore. Like that money's gone.
That's what I was going to ask you. It's the financial piece of it.
The financial piece is gone.
What advice would you give to somebody that's wanting to go down there? And I asked that knowing that you helped my son, Robbie.
Yeah.
And he packed up the car.
Yep.
And went to LA and slept on your couch.
He did. He did. Yep.
And you helped him get his foot in the door. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. He's eternally grateful, and he's had a great run himself.
You're
like a sister. I was just going to say, you're like a sister to him. But nowadays, and I think that was how many years ago was that? Again, I'm lost. 7 years,
at least. Yeah.
7 years ago. But now, somebody wanting to go down there, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
patience. Be patient. And also, I think the industry is still alive and it's still well and it's growing. It's low and now it'll grow high. But you be patient. And I think the same advice that I give anyone is like be the hardest working person in the room. Make yourself indispensable, no matter what position that is. Whether it's getting coffee, be the best person to ever get coffee ever. You know, that's that element of making yourself shine in a way where people want you on their team and they want to bring you up and they want to continue working with you. Keep doing that. The Hollywood industry is all about who you know, but it's also about working for it. As I can get you in the door, I can make the phone call. That's not the hard, but you have to prove it because it's an industry that will eat you alive. If you are not strong enough, they do not care. It's you either it's sink or swim. And there are 900 people literally in like there are 900 people behind you.
Yeah.
That will fill your spot.
Best advice ever. Be the best at getting the coffee.
Yeah.
Get to know the people that you're around.
Yeah.
Connect yourself with the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be kind. And be kind. The kindness gets, I think people forget about that. Be kind. Be kind to everyone. Like no matter if they're the executive producer or the cleaning team, the craft services. Just be kind to everyone, because you never know who's watching, and you also never. Hollywood is any industry is really so small, so you just will always run into people. I mean, look at like this is a really perfect example of like me coming back to KHQ. It's like there's still so many people that I worked with when I was here, and so many new faces, but also I love coming back here. It feels like home. And so, and they make me feel like it's home. And I love that piece of this.
Mandi Price, this is always going to be home for you. Always, always. And we're so proud of you. And I think that we're just seeing the very beginning of the greatness that you're going to create because you are one of the kindest people I've ever met. Thank you for being on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me, Mama Lo.